Welcome to One TV, your source for all the latest happenings in Shelby County government impacting our community. I'm your host, Kanji Anthony, and today we have a special guest joining us. We are honored to welcome Chief Phyllis Aluko. Chief Aluko, you have been in the Public Defender's Office nearly 30 years. You are the first African-American female Chief Public Defender in Shelby County history. Tell us what your office does and how it feels to have such a distinguished title.
Well, it feels great. I'm actually the first woman to be confirmed by the Shelby County Commission to be the Shelby County Chief Public Defender, and that's an awesome responsibility. I feel very grateful that the community has entrusted me. What our office does is we represent accused people who have been charged with committing a criminal offense. Literally what we do is make certain that due process is afforded for every client and for every case.
Not everybody has, a bucket of money to represent themselves. And so that's where you step in.
Absolutely. Our clients have been determined to be indigent, meaning that they cannot afford to hire private counsel to represent them on the charge of which they have been accused. And so we step in to make certain that they get zealous, client-centered advocacy.
Okay, so of course we can't talk about any open cases, but if you could think of one or more memorable cases that could help us understand just exactly what happens inside the Public Defender's Office, share that with us so we can just see what you do.
Well, I've had in my career a lot of memorable cases. I've worked in our trial unit. I've worked in our appellate division, and so both at trial and on appeal, I've had some very memorable cases. I think the most memorable to me, the most impactful are those where I could see immediately where my advocacy has made a difference in my client's life, which is why I got into this line of work to begin with, to make a positive difference. I've had a case in which I represented a young gentleman who was a football player in college, and the difference between the outcome of me being able to get a positive outcome for his case made the difference in his ability to go on and play in the NFL. I've had cases where obviously you remember the cases in which you went to trial and got not guilty verdicts. But I think something that happened most recently in our office that was not one of the cases that I tried, but one of the cases that my colleagues in the office tried was a murder first degree case. And we had a client who was charged with the most serious offense that you can be charged with in Tennessee, and looking at life or life without parole in prison. And when our office got the case and began to work the case, began to do the defense investigation, which is not done usually prior to us being appointed, we began to look into the case from the defense's perspective, and we discovered that the client was not guilty. Yet it took almost a year before we could get the client out of jail. We found that the system is very reluctant to admit that it's made a mistake, and even though our client had an alibi, a credible alibi, even though the DNA did not match our client, even though the DNA actually pointed to another person who now is charged with the offense, the system was reluctant to admit that they made a mistake. And so the advocacy that my colleagues did in representing that client made a huge difference. The client is now out of custody and working, and the charges have been dropped. But that is an example of the importance of having zealous advocacy to make certain that in the public's name, the state does not do a wrong. So that's something that happened fairly recently that I think really demonstrates the importance of the work that we do.
Something that you said that was very interesting to me, I don't really think about it, but you're not getting the evidence until, the person, I guess that the state or whomever has already collected the evidence, and then you're working from the back end forward.
Exactly. We look at the case from a different perspective. When the police look at the case, they're definitely trying to solve the crime, but oftentimes there is tunnel vision. There's one way of looking at things, and oftentimes when we get the case, we discover that there's a totally different story that was not investigated. It doesn't necessarily promote the prosecution of our client. And it's important that the jury or the judge, whoever is going to be the fact finder in the case, it's very important that they hear both sides, the defense as well as the prosecution.
I guess the public always sees, shows like Law and Order, but it just doesn't, it's not one episode. It's the marathon. What's also interesting is that you have one of the best internship programs in the country. What makes it so great?
I am very proud of our internship program. I think what makes it so great is the buy-in for my colleagues in the office. You can't have a good internship program if you don't have good mentors. That's what an internship program is all about. I led our office's internship program for many years before I became the chief public defender, and now I am proud to say that I have help. I have two fabulous co-leaders of our internship program, Eric Elms and Vincent Orries, and they work with a committee. And so we have many people in our office that work together. It takes time to mentor something that you can do because you know how to do it. You can do it very quickly. When you are teaching someone else how to do it, it takes a little bit more time, more effort, and I am just so happy that our team sees the value in taking that time, because essentially we are training the next generation of defenders. And so the internship program is very important. It's a diverse program. We get people from all over the country, from law schools all over, who want to come to Memphis to learn from us. So we're really happy that our internship program has been received with such
it's acclaim. I mean, national acclaim. That's what's so great about it. And you can read a law book, but then there's what is real life and how do you apply it to real life? And so that's where your internship program has been able to really step in. So that's pretty incredible. And your summer internship cohort just wrapped up. So how many interns, and it's so interesting, they're attorneys, but how many interns did you have, and what are you thinking next year will look like?
Well, our interns are not quite attorneys yet. They're in law school, so they are attorneys to be. They can be finishing up their first year or their second year or getting ready to take the bar exam after their third year, but they're not quite attorneys, but there's a lot that they can still do to help. And we had 25 interns this summer from law schools all over the country, and they brought an amazing energy to our office. And from what I understand from the reports, they learned a lot, and many of them are anxious to come back next summer.
See, and that's the thing about retention. So it looks like you're going to have more people coming back that have already been in the program, and you've done some amazing things, and we're just so glad that we have your institutional knowledge in such a space. So thank you so much, Chief, for being with us today.
Thank you.
All right, so we'd like for you to stay tuned. When we come back, we are going to hear from a supervising attorney for the program and a recent intern who is now an assistant public defender because of this lady here. All right, we'll be right back.